Hello, and welcome to a recap of the Connecting Learning Tools to the Desire2Learn Platform Models and Approaches presentation delivered this summer 2014 at the Desire2Learn Fusion Users Conference. This presentation touches on a recurring theme mentioned many times throughout the conference, that the learning experience we deliver to faculty and students is no longer one that only involves the learning management system itself, but rather a blend of tools provided by a number of different vendors, delivered in a number of different ways. And it's increasingly common for institutions to plug tools into their LMS to do so. In particular, this presentation focuses on the decision-making criteria around choosing a tool to integrate with your LMS, how to go about making that decision, thinking through some of the different approaches and models you can take for integrating that tool with your Desire2Learn environment. And of course, as part of this presentation, being that it's a workshop-style presentation, we did actually have some laptops in the room where everyone is able to add an LTI learning tool to their Fusion Sandbox classroom. And also, we gave a go at using the Desire2Learn Valence APIs to create an extract of class list roster information out of our a development server that Desire2Learn graciously provided us. And for a lot of people in the room, they were successful making their first Valence API calls. So to set the context, we're really moving into this era where the learning environment that we provide really is a best-of-breed solution from components sourced from all over the place, from different vendors. Some are hosted locally, some are in the cloud, some are developed in-house. And it's increasingly the case that APIs like Desire2Learn's Valence and open standards like the one we will learn about today, Learning Tools Interoperability, really enable the LMS to interconnect and interoperate with many different learning tools that are out there in the world. First, some background for us. Keep this in context as you make decisions about how you'll use learning tools at your institution. UMUC is actually a fairly large online university. By far the majority of our students are online, and by far the majority of our students are non-traditional in nature. They are adult learners, they're in the military, they are employed full-time while trying to continue their degrees or continue their associate's degrees, turn them into bachelor's degrees. We just have a number of students distributed throughout the world taking our classes online. And because of that, there are some things that make us fairly unique. Of course, unique in quotes because every university is unique. We do have a tremendous scale to our operations, and we need to be successful at scale. It can't just be we launch a tool that a bajillion users can use. It actually has to work not only technically but functionally at that scale. We also have a fairly unique schedule. You know, we do have fall, winter, spring, and summer semesters just like many other institutions, but we actually kick off new classes every week, just about every week. So every week it's a new adventure of new people gaining access to the system, new people using these tools, and similarly at the tail end, people losing access to tools at the tail end of their experience or courses being archived over time and taken out of rotation in the system. Because of our scale and because of the sheer number of users and because of that schedule, there's only so much room for error in the decisions we make. So we tend to err on the conservative side of things. However, we do try and be as innovative as possible, and we'll talk about that some more throughout this presentation, how we support that. We also have a content development team who's fairly involved with creating what we call model classrooms that are used to deliver the classes we deliver. Those content development teams consist of everyone from graphics designers, video experts, to subject matter experts, librarians, the academic directors, experienced professors, people who've taught the course over many years. And those individuals are really crafting the, quote, perfect course and updating it and prepackaging it so that when we deliver it to other instructors, it's ready to teach. There are also a fair number of developers on that content development team who craft learning tools that we use for our institution. For example, there's one that is used by all incoming graduate students to orient them with the library and to walk them through some exercises where they actually search for items in our online library, databases, e-resources, and actually learn how to cite them in APA format. And of course, the tool can relay feedback to the instructor, and the instructor can say, you did this well, or you need to improve in some way. We also have a very successful cybersecurity program. This is a tool that's more focused on the specific pedagogy for a specific subject area. It actually allows students to log into kind of a virtual computer network and go through some exercises where they learn how to hack each other and maybe exploit some software vulnerabilities. But that's something that we developed in-house specifically for that educational context, and we have many more tools similar to those that we built in-house. We also have a number of tools that are more generic in nature. For example, a course evaluation tool, a syllabus tool, so on and so forth. We are in the middle of transitioning to Desire2Learn. For many, many years, well more than a decade, we have used a homegrown LMS called WebTyco, and it has served us well, but we have decided to migrate to a commercial off-the-shelf solution. So that's a big change for us that we've undergone just in the past year, and in fact, this fall is the very first semester that everyone will be teaching and learning in Desire2Learn. Similarly, within the past 6 months or so, we've migrated all of our in-house apps to the Amazon cloud. So we used to have several data centers set up around the world where we would host things for our students in Asia, our students in Europe, and our students in the United States. And of course, those were co-located and redundant. However, we have now completed the implementation of moving all of those apps to the cloud. So again, from a technical, architectural perspective, very cool to be able to move things in that way. But again, another change. And thirdly, as we're going about migrating from our homegrown MS to Desire2Learn, there are certainly a number of tools that we've developed and integrated over the years. And as we go through this exercise, we have an opportunity to replace, to rebuild, and to source in different manners those tools that we use around the university. As I mentioned earlier, we actually did choose to use a different course evaluation tool than the one that we've developed over the years. We also chose to use a different syllabus tool than the one of many homegrown solutions that we'd come up with. And as we pick and choose those learning tools out of our legacy LMS, and we're needing to decide what to do with them moving forward. And so we've come up with some structure on what to do when integrating third-party tools with Desire2Learn. And in all cases, we intend to ensure that those learning tools are integrated in standards-compliant manners. And we really aren't willing to compromise on that. We really want everything to be done in a standards-compliant way. When a native D2L partner integration exists, we also want to consider it too. However, we also want to enable the academic and business leadership at the university to decide how to move forward. We want them to be able to vet whatever tools they might want to use against a common set of criteria and decide, is this a good fit for the university or is this a bad fit for the university? Is this going to be easy to implement or is this not going to be easy to implement? And whenever possible, we want to put them in the driver's seat. We, quote, Central IT, do not want to be in the business of hand-holding every single integration. We want to make things easy. We want to make things turnkey. We will provide consulting and guidance and implementation services if we're called upon to do so. But if you don't want to wait on us, we want our users, wherever possible, to just take and run with things. And so as we're considering what to do with these learning tools one by one, each decision kind of goes through 3 phases. Evaluating a good fit for the university, determining the level of effort required to implement the tool, and actually making it happen. The first step of that, evaluating a fit, involves some baseline questions that include, does this tool support our local authentication method? For your users, for your institution, you might be asking questions like, does it support Shibboleth, CAS, LDAP? It's not really good practice to set up another username, another password for accessing another system. Make sure it can interoperate with your existing authentication systems in that manner. Secondly, if you're going to be integrating this tool with Desire2Learn, make sure it either has a D2L partner integration or support for an open standard called LTI, Learning Tools Interoperability. This standard makes it really easy to plug and play, in a plug-and-play manner, connect these tools to your LMS. Third, if the tool, for whatever reason, requires SIS data, course enrollment, and user information, make sure that synchronization can be automated in some way. Next, regulatory requirements. In the United States, we have to comply with FERPA and accessibility regulations, and it's the right thing to do that, and you need to make sure that your vendor agrees with you. For most vendors in the educational technology space, they already comply with FERPA and accessibility requirements, so you don't really have to worry about it. Next, security is also extremely important. You've heard of many universities who have fallen victim to certain hacking attempts over the past year. You want to make sure that the vendors you do business with are going to be as secure as you think they should be, using proper SSL, proper encryption, being responsible with personally identifiable information, so on and so forth. Next, you will absolutely want to make sure that you have uptime support and integration SLAs, or service level agreements, in your contract. This allows the vendor to very clearly understand your expectations if something were to ever go wrong, if a system were to go down, if it were to lose connectivity. It also allows you, the university, to protect yourself and allows you to hold your vendor accountable if something goes wrong. Don't compromise on this particular aspect. Make sure that an SLA of some sort exists in your contract to make sure that if something goes wrong, and we're not saying things will go wrong, and most of the time things are working right, but when they do, you want to make sure that language exists. Next, if your vendor really cares about you, they're going to be able to provide you a separate development, QA, and production environment. It's not a best practice to go tinkering in production whenever you want to try something new, and a vendor who will enable you to do that is one that you want to work with. You want to be able to have these separate environments so that you can properly put every change through the motion, so that when you go live in production, there are no misses, there are no unexpected gotchas. It just happens the way it should. An often overlooked aspect of integrating a third-party tool is how do you monitor it? Where's the logging? How do you get alerted if it goes down? Again, from a system operations perspective, very important to have those capabilities in the product. And finally, trust. There are a lot of vendors in the educational technology space. Some are very young and innovative, and maybe they haven't been around a while, but they have a really cool tool that you want to use at your institution. You have to weigh that against working with a more established vendor who has experience, who can be held accountable. A younger vendor might go out of business. A younger vendor with not a lot of customers might be bought by someone or acquired by another company. Keep all those things in mind as you make decisions about your learning tools. For example, the syllabus tool that I mentioned earlier, 2 years ago, I understand we looked at it and we decided to pass on it because it was a very young startup company. They didn't have a lot of customers, and we just weren't sure they were going to be around a while. But 2 years later, the time was right. The company was maturing. They have a nice number of customers, reference clients. We checked them out, and we decided this company is a good candidate to do business with at this point in time. Next, you'll want to consider the level of effort of turning on that integration. And for most tools, they will either have a D2L partner integration or an LTI-based integration. For D2L partner integrations, keep in the back of your mind that when D2L and the third party have both mutually agreed that they will support a particular tool integration, it's not on you to support it. It's on them. And it's on them to maintain it as well. So maybe a plus to use the native partner integration. Partner integrations also tend to be a little cleaner with the user experience. As the user is navigated from Desire2Learn into the third-party learning tool, it in all likelihood will be a nice, clean, oiled experience that your users will like. However, not every tool has a partner integration. And in those cases, they typically will have an LTI-based integration. LTI, again, Learning Tools Interoperability, is that standard that allows tools to very seamlessly interoperate across LMSs, across learning tools, in a standards-based and LMS-agnostic manner. D2L supports LTI. And because of that, any tool that supports LTI will work with Desire2Learn. So a very easy way to get started. One thing you want to keep in the back of your mind, however, is LTI integration. Sometimes the user interface will differ between D2L and the tool, and you'll want to do whatever you can, CSS modifications, changing colors, changing fonts, changing logos, to make that experience as seamless and consistent as you can. When you choose a tool, you're also going to want to consider how hard is it to keep the tool up and running and to functionally make sure it's behaving the way it should. Don't forget about that. It's a very important aspect of success with a learning tool. So if your tool requires any administration at all, make sure that the tool is easy to use. Put it through those motions. Make sure it does what you need it to. And finally, in particular, if that tool requires an integration with your student information system, investigate how that is accomplished. Is it a nightly upload? Is it a manual upload? Is it an API? Is it something else? Ask those questions and receive the documentation as you make a decision about a tool. As you launch a tool using LTI, we're going to focus a little more on this standard at this point in time. You'll notice that certain values are passed across the wire. You get the SIS identifier of the course, you get something to uniquely identify the user, and you'll have something that identifies the role of the user in the course. And it's very important to make sure that those values remain consistent as they flow from the SIS to the LMS, through LTI, to the external learning tool, and potentially back to your analytics or reporting data warehouse. For your SIS identifier, it's probably going to be fairly easy for you to pick what that is. For your user identifier, it's probably going to be their SSO username or their employee or student ID. For their role, it's going to be faculty or student or teaching assistant or librarian, so on and so forth. A fourth piece of information that you'll see in this LTI launch data is called the resource link ID. This uniquely identifies the link, the LTI link that the user clicks in the course. For integrations that direct you specifically to a piece of content in particular, it's helpful to be able to identify one piece of content versus a different piece of content. You'll notice that an LTI launch only provides data about one single user at a time. And in that case, if the tool only needs data on that one user at that point in time, it's extremely super simple to get up and running. And you can think of the way that a tool might need information in one of four manners. You might need to synchronize that user course and enrollment information with the third-party tool to make it work. Now, if you're just clicking a link and launching into it and everything happens automatedly, that's what we think of here as the just-in-time LTI model. There's no need for anything else. You click the link, it works, you can call it a day. However, there are going to be some times where this tool needs more information about the user than exists in the LMS. For example, it might want to know the semester standing of the student. Well, that's not in the LMS, so you're going to have to reach out and get it from somewhere. Or you're going to have to provide it in a separate feed somehow. Similarly, if you want more information on a course, for example, which department does this course belong to? Which college or school does this course belong to? That's not something that's going to come across in an LTI launch, and you're going to need to get it from elsewhere. In those cases, there's the real-time model for LTI integrations, where as soon as the user clicks that link, the third-party system is going to reach back somewhere and grab that additional information it needs, right then and there on the spot. Now that's pretty advanced, and not all tools support that. So in many cases, you're going to have to resort to one of the third or fourth models on this slide. For example, the point-in-time synchronization is useful if you have to upload something once a term, or once a semester, or once a month, or twice a year. If it's if that data needs to be synchronized on that rarely a cycle, you're probably going to choose the point-in-time approach of someone manually crafts the file and uploads it at a point in time, and that's how we keep things in sync. However, the most common model that we use here at our university is the nightly or hourly sync of data, so that periodically throughout the day, a CSV file is generated and uploaded to the target system, or periodically throughout the day, an automated process runs and makes API calls out to this third-party tool to keep that data in sync. So just want to be aware that you have a number of options, and you'll want to think through how you want to make that happen. At the Fusion conference, we next went to the Fusion site and logged into the Sandbox course that everyone is provided with as an attendee of the conference. Just hopping over real quick, I want to show you that we created a link to a learning tool called the Class Map. Thank you to Dr. Chuck Severance for allowing us to use his pretty awesome tool as part of this demo. Chuck Severance is the originator of the LTI Learning Tools Interoperability standard. He's a great champion of open standards in education and has done a tremendous amount of effort to ensure that this standard has become widely adopted. Inside the Fusion course, inside the course administration page, there's a link called External Learning Tools. And we clicked that and added a class map link where we included the URL to the tool, specified the key to the tool, and configured the secret to the tool. The URL, the key, and the secret are the three things you're going to need to configure any LTI tool. If you're a system administrator of D2L, you can configure this tool at the root of the system and push it out to all courses. As I mentioned earlier, though, however, some tools are pretty innovative in nature, and maybe you'd want to turn them on only for specific courses or specific departments or specific pilots or evaluations. You can do that with D2L very easily by using the Add Org Units button at the bottom of the screen. But generally, the URL, the key, and secret are all you need. Under Security Settings, you're also going to see a number of checkboxes as well. If you intend to pass the SIS identifier of the course and the user identifier of the user over to the third-party system, you're going to need to check more of these than is the default out-of-the-box configuration. So make sure you go through the documentation and send only the information you need to send to that third party. Once you configure the link, it appears in this External Learning Tools dropdown. And you'll see here Class Map is an option. We added that link to our class, and you can see when you click it, it knows who I am. It shows me as my first name, last name, from my first name, last name sandbox, and my role as instructor. And you can see here, this is a pretty cool tool. You can log in, drag your dot to wherever you are. As your class logs in and more students log in, they will be able to add their dots to this map as well. Super cool tool. Thank you, Dr. Chuck. Going back to our presentation, we did continue on with a demo, the implementation of the tool. Now, what we just accomplished very quickly was a extremely simple, just-in-time integration of an LTI tool. Extremely easy to get started, but there are some other things you need to think through if you're going to implement your tool widely at your university. First and foremost, if it's a new tool and you have the ability to roll it out to a subset of users, consider having a pilot or evaluation of the tool. You'll want to work with the right staff at the university to coordinate having a pilot or evaluation to make sure you really have a good champion for the tool who's going to go out there, put that tool through its exercises, give you open and honest feedback on how it worked, and perhaps even help spread the good word about the tool, and to help get other people excited about using it as well. You're also going to want to involve your configuration management people. These are the individuals who are going to be looking after those keys and secrets, who are going to be figuring out how to give access to the QA and development environments as appropriate. They're kind of the people who make sure that everything's in alignment across all your systems and configured the right way. You're also going to want to involve your application management folks. These are the people who are going to be the system admins or the functional admins of the tool. Make sure you have those people selected, ensure that they know they're selected, ensure that they are well positioned to look after that tool in an ongoing manner. They're really the people who are going to sustain it over time. And finally, make sure your support desk is well informed that change is coming as well. Make sure they're kept informed of any change, any new tool. Make sure that you have training materials and KB articles created so that they can be well positioned to support your users should they have trouble or need additional guidance or help to get up and running with the tool. Some of the things we've noticed about the way D2L supports API include these nuances, which you'll want to be aware of as well. First of all, D2L only supports the LTI institution roles. It does not support the context or system roles. So when you're in the IMS configuration screen in the D2L admin configuration area, just be aware as you're configuring that it's only the institution roles that are available for configuration. Also be aware that it's one global configuration. Any change you make to that configuration screen will take effect immediately for all LTI tools across your system. So just be extremely careful when making any change to accommodate all the different tools used on the system. Secondly, also be aware that D2L uses slightly different than normal identifiers for the user and course information, specifically the SIS user and course information. It does provide it complies with the standard fully. However, if your intention is to pass the SIS identifier of the course and the unique identifier of the user to the tool, make sure you check to send those additional D2L identifiers as well. Third, content copy behaviors. Just be aware as you copy content from one course to the next, or if you roll a course from spring to fall, or from fall to spring rather, be aware that the link identifier under the covers changes. So if you have a link for a very specific piece of content in D2L going to a very specific piece of content in this third-party external learning tool, make sure that you update or at least check to make sure that correct link is still in place if you were ever to copy that course. And finally, be aware that LTI can actually send grades back to the gradebook. Very helpful, very useful feature of the specification. Just be aware that when LTI does return a grade to D2L, it adds a column to the gradebook. So don't expect that. Some of the things we've learned from now having used the LTI tools in production for a while now are, first and foremost, the user interfaces are going to be inconsistent, and your users will not always realize that they're in D2L or in a third-party tool. They will get confused. Have some language that the help desk can use to help them understand that, and do your best to make that experience as consistent as possible. Make sure that you have a clearly defined support path for those help desk individuals. Sometimes you'll need to escalate to a vendor, and you'll need to establish that relationship and make sure that everyone knows exactly how things are going to flow up the chain if something goes wrong. Also be aware that because of the more distributed nature of the learning environment, there's going to be less critical downtime. Everything is not going to be down at the same time. However, different components of the LMS may go down from time to time. When that happens, be proactive about alerting your users. Put a news item out there that says, sorry, the course evaluation tool is going to be unavailable from 1 to 3 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on next Saturday. Put that alert out there. Make your users aware. Be proactive about alerting them. And where possible, coordinate downtime. But honestly, the more vendors you have involved, the more solutions you have involved, it's going to become increasingly difficult to do that. So just be aware of those aspects. At this part of the presentation, we actually walk through extracting a class list or roster information from a Desire2Learn development server and use the Valence APIs to do that. So I mentioned earlier, sometimes these external learning tools need that full extract of the user data before the first user launches the first LTI link. And in those cases, you need to have some way of populating that system with data. Valence provides a very easy, very straightforward way to grab information out of D2L so you can transform it into a CSV file, for instance, and then put that file wherever you need to in whatever third-party learning tool you're working with. If you were attending the Fusion conference, the instructions for how we did this are in the Fusion session course. we actually followed some of the beginner guidance on the Valence Developer website that D2L provides to walk through extracting the roster from a course. And as you can see here, the data that is returned when making a Valence API call is in JSON data format. It's an evolution of XML, just at a very high level. It makes it very easy to retrieve and parse information from these REST-based APIs that D2L provides, and then transform it and push it out to other systems. So I encourage you, get access to a D2L development environment, get access to the Valence APIs. There's somewhat of a process to get started with it, but once you're up and running, it's very easy to continue. Go ahead and explore that. There were many people in the workshop session who were using Valence for the very first time, and they were successful making their first API calls. So if they can do it, you can too. And again, go ahead and explore and do good creative things. Certainly hope that this was helpful to provide some background information and context of how you might choose and use external learning tools and integrate them with your LMS at your institution. If you have any questions, I promise to be as helpful as I can be. Just drop me a note, shoot me a tweet, get in touch however you can. Appreciate your time. Thank you.